Hello and welcome to season 3 of the Black Hole Podcast. This season's title is Technology Startup, and that's basically what I'm trying to do is start a technology startup, keep a podcast to keep investors informed as to decisions and the progress of the project. So I want to start off by reading two documents. I'm going to try to keep it brief, but these are documents I wrote to describe the platform and then an operating document. So here goes document 1, the Scope Internet Platform. Scope is an internet platform designed to help elected officials be more accountable to their constituents. Scope allows elected officials to keep a daily podcast about events of the day and decisions to be made. Scope also allows these officials to set up topics or decisions to be voted on by constituents. The Scope platform also allows elected officials to publish their schedule with a detailed description of each person they met with the previous day. Users of the Scope platform are asked to verify their address yearly using a utility bill with their name on it. Once their permanent address is established with their account, a user will be able to see every elected official they are eligible to vote for. Users can then access these elected officials if they use the platform and listen to their podcast, view their schedule, and vote on topics. Scope will make it easy for constituents to form listening groups in order to better keep tabs on elected officials. These listening groups can split up the task of listening to their elected officials' podcasts and then comment in the group as to different topics and decisions discussed. This will allow for people to get a briefing instead of having to listen to every podcast on the platform. Users will also be able to elect other constituents within the platform to ask elected officials questions. By electing designated people to ask questions, it will make it easier for elected officials to respond to a few people rather than every constituent on the platform. There will be a minority constituent in each elected official's territory. The minority constituent will be from a different party than the elected official. Scope will highly encourage the elected official to respond to the minority constituents' questions. Scope will be free to all elected officials and constituents. In order to operate as a free service, Scope will seek revenue from advertisers. Users will be able to vote on a county-by-county basis on which advertisers are allowed to advertise on the platform. Revenue from advertising will be used to pay staff, pay dividends to our initial investors, and expand the platform to other markets. Scope truly brings accountability to the political process. It allows the people to vote on every decision being made within the political system. We believe this will bring transparency to politics and may take big money out of the system. Scope could be the first step to true campaign finance reform. So that's the end of document 1. That's pretty much the description of the platform. Now I'll move to document 2, the Scope operating document. This is what I would file if I were to form an LLC, just to explain how the business works. So here's the Scope operating document. The Scope Internet platform allows elected officials to publish a daily podcast, post their schedule with descriptions of who they met with, and hold votes about decisions they have to make. Scope is free to all users, and its main source of revenue is from advertising on the site. This document explains how revenue raised from advertising will be distributed to the founders and investors. It also explains the main system upon how the company operates. Scope operates as a truly transparent company, with the founder keeping a podcast about company decisions. Investors are then allowed to vote on each decision. There is an executive board made up of the founders of the company. The executive board reserves the right to override any vote, but will try to stay true to the vote of the investors. There will be 2 types of privately held stock issued in order to start the Scope platform. There will be general stock that can be purchased for $100 per share. There will also be executive stock that is designed to compensate those creating the Scope platform. Executive stock will be issued in increments of $100 per share. General stock grants a form of ownership to anyone who buys a $100 share. General stockholders will be allowed to vote on all decisions within the company. These general votes are not weighted by how much stock is owned. In other words, each person gets one vote no matter how much general stock they own. This is so that the decisions of the company are not skewed more towards the wealthy. Owners of general stock will receive dividends when the company is profitable. 5% of profit is reserved for general stock dividends. At the end of each year, the 5% of profit will be divided evenly to all general stockholders. Each share of general stock will receive an equal share of the 5% of profit. In the unlikely event that the company should need to liquidate, general stockholders will be on the list of those to receive their initial investment back. First, all employees will be paid. Next, all creditors will be paid. Then, all general stockholders will be paid. Executive stock is on a fast track to payoff, so they will be the last to be compensated in the case of liquidation. Executive stock is designed to be delayed compensation for those that help create the Scope Internet platform. Executive stock is issued instead of a salary for each hour worked on creating the site. Executive stock guarantees the same rights of ownership as general stock, allowing for voting rights and dividends. Executive stock gets paid back by using 30% of profit. For each share issued, the executive stockholder gets paid the $100 price of the stock. At the discretion of the executive board, 30% of profit will go towards paying out $100 per share of executive stock on a quarterly or yearly basis. Once the executive stockholder has received their $100 for a share, that share will be considered to be in good standing and only receive a dividend from that point on. Executive stock receives dividend from a separate 5% of profit than general stock. The 5% of profit will be equally distributed to each share of executive stock as a dividend on a yearly basis. Executive stockholders will receive their dividend even if they have not been fully compensated the $100 for the initial share. So far, this document has laid out how 40% of profit will be used. 5% goes to general stock dividends, 5% goes to executive stock dividends, 30% goes towards compensating executive stockholders. Once all executive stock has been paid in full, the company will vote on how to use the 30% of profit for executive stock compensation. The executive board will be made up of up to 9 members, including Mitch Miller as the CEO. The other 8 members will have the expertise to help build the Scope platform. In addition to being issued executive stock as compensation for their time, each member of the executive board will receive 5% of profit as compensation. This operating document has accounted for up to 85% of profit from the Scope Internet platform. The remaining 15% will be voted on by the company as to how it will be used. All votes will be by a 51% majority winning the vote. The below named persons will be officers within the company at the formation. And that's the end of this document. So I'm looking for people that can help build this company to name in this document as officers on the executive board. So those are my 2 documents, and as the drafter of these documents, I want to release the copyright except in the U.S. So I release the copyright to these 2 documents to any other nation other than the United States. So if you're in another nation and you want to start a similar site or the exact same site, you can copy this word for word, translate it, put it in your word processing platform, and this is the first step to building this company. So that being said, the company is for profit. I believe that if you want something to spread far and wide, then prove that it's profitable, because we live in a global economy that's driven mainly by capitalism. So if you prove that it's profitable, then other countries will adapt it, or at least investors in other countries will push it forward. As I said, I'm looking for computer science people. This is not my social media platform idea. I still have that on the back burner, but this more aligns with my run for mayor of Pittsburgh, which I'm not taking super seriously, but if elected, I could call out other elected officials why they don't use this platform. So it's basically a form of direct democracy on a elected official by elected official basis. And just a note on the executive stock. So basically I'm looking for people to help build this platform. we'll keep track of every hour they work. We'll vote on an agreed upon hourly compensation rate for all the computer science people, and then they'll be paid at that rate for every hour they put on into the platform. But they'll be hopefully I'm hoping to find people that are willing to take the compensation as executive stock. So then they'd be issued executive stock, $100 per share. So if the agreed upon rate is $50 an hour, every 2 hours they'll receive a certificate for executive stock. And then once the platform is profitable, 30% of profit will go towards actually compensating them that $100 per share. So it's a delayed kind of situation where once it's built and we're profitable, they get paid for every share, they get paid for every hour, and that's the way that's designed to work. So I'd like to have on the executive board an accountant and a lawyer, an accountant that knows how to deal with dividends and things like that, and a lawyer. And the rest, computer science people, up to 8, as I said. But it can work anyway. It can work a couple different ways. I mean, if it's basically, I've saved $10,000 to invest into this endeavor, and if people are willing to come close to that or match that, they could be on the executive board, and they don't have to be accountants or lawyers or computer science people, and we could just try to contract with computer science people or raise enough money to actually have a payroll and hire them. So that's one way to do it. I was kind of hoping to find qualified computer science people that wanted to be part of the company and get that 5% of profit of being on the executive board. So just to be clear, computer science people or whoever is going to be on the executive board would get computer science people would get executive stock as compensation, plus they would get the 5% just for being on the executive board. And I think it makes sense to have computer science people on your executive board if you're starting a technology company. But like I said, maybe people are just want to be on the right side of history and have campaign finance reform and really start this thing and invest some money into getting it started. So that's what I'm looking for. So what I'm trying to do is start just like a simple site at first before we can expand into the actual platform, and just like a landing page or a simple site. It would have documents 1 and 2 on it, published on it. So you'd have the description, then you'd have the operating document for investors that might want to invest, and a contact form for that, and then an advertisers section where we can put up people who wanted to advertise on the site right from the get-go, and a contact form for that. In the description section on the document 1 section that describes the platform, I want to put 2 features. It'll be a little section where people can vote. So basically, they go in, they enter their name, their email address, and there's a tab for their physical address. If they're within the United States, they just have to put a zip code. If they click on the out of United States bubble, then there's a paragraph size section where they can fill out their physical address. And I'm not sure how this works, but I'm looking to compile this data, pay extra for hosting to be able to compile this data, so that we can see what zips people are. And then, I'm sorry, at the end of that section it says, I want my elected officials to have have a daily podcast, to publish their schedule, and to allow for voting by their constituents using this platform. And then you click vote, so you vote for that, and then we can take the list of zip codes to elected officials and say, look at how many people in your zip want you to do this, and take the data to them. And then the email address is to update them when the platform does roll out. We can create an email list. So that's what I'm looking to compile the data. So when they click on that, I'm hoping the site will automatically compile an email list and will put the zip code into some kind of spreadsheet that we can just easily pull up and show. So I don't know how complicated that is, but that's what I'm looking for the first phase of this. And keep it simple, and that's what we're looking for. So like I said, I have the money to invest that I've saved up. I was going to use it for the social media platform, but I think this will be a simpler way to start a technology startup. If you'd like to invest even $100 for a share, you can contact me through my 2 existing websites, plotm.com, that's plot the letter m.com, or mitch4mayor.com, that's mitch the number 4mayor.com. There's email contact forms on there. I hope you'll consider being part of this. Ideally, you invest $100, and then over the course of time, you get paid back that $100 plus you make money off of your investment. And you get to vote. Like I said, it's going to be totally transparent. So I'll keep doing these update podcasts. I'm going to look into forming an LLC, taking some of that money and then opening a bank account. That'll be in future podcasts, how I did it exactly. And I've reached out to some people I know, lawyer friend and stuff, to look at some of these documents and things and to help build it. But I guess my next step will be to advertise on LinkedIn or some other platform to look for technology people that can help build this simple starting site and get that up and running. I'm going to secure a domain name. And when you use these documents, if you're in another country and you want to start the same thing to keep your government accountable, you can use the scope name. It's just a working name right now, but you'll see if you use that in your document how you can alter it later and customize it. So I think it'll work out well. So like I said, I'm going to try to be brief. This is getting a little long. I'm going to try to keep these podcasts under 20 minutes so that they're more digestible and hopefully more people will listen. Thanks for listening, and hopefully we can launch this thing and make it profitable. I think it'll be profitable. I think, even if a elected official can get 10 votes out just by using this platform, they're likely to use it just to get those 10 votes. So, and like I say, how many people don't want to go sit for hours at their town council meeting, but if the elected official just gave a wham bam bam podcast that just went through the topics briefly, they'd be likely to listen to that in the morning while they're getting ready for work rather than going and sitting through hours of discourse in a borough council meeting or whatever. So I think this platform will be useful and it'll bring a lot more people into the political process, which will mean more accountability from the government. So thanks for listening. I guess my sponsor for this podcast is 542 Prints. So if you need a design logo embroidered or screen printed on a garment of clothing, go to 542prints.com and contact them today. Other than that, if you'd like to advertise on this podcast or on the site, you can contact me through those websites, as I said. Thanks for listening, and once I make some progress on this, I'll fire up another podcast. Might be a week, might be a couple weeks, might be a month. But stay tuned, and thanks for listening.